This is Patty. She's 77 years old, retired in California. In her mid-20s, a year before Woodstock, Patty flew to Jamaica to import 900 pounds of marijuana of a psychedelic potency unheard of in the US. Now, 50 years later, she's ready to tell her story.
All right, 1968. I was flying for National Airlines, and I decided to open a shop in Coconut Grove, Florida. It's called Motherload.
She operated the store with her boyfriend, John.
He later became my husband.
And one day,
John and his partner had thought about bringing some marijuana in from Jamaica, and he asked me to go with him, and I went.
At the time, marijuana was still being trafficked into the US in small batches.
There were no cartels. There were no big time smugglers.
While in Jamaica, John went looking for weed.
While they were gone during the day, I would walk the beach, and I watched the fishermen come in, and they were mostly Rastas. So they asked me what I was doing there, and I said, well, my boyfriend is looking for ganja. And then they invited me up to their homes up in the Blue Mountains. You know, they were growing ganja, they were growing weed. That's when I put it together in my mind. I'm gonna do this.
And what about John?
No, I never mentioned to him I was doing this. I never told him that I even met these Rastas. If these guys could do it, so I could do it, maybe do it better. And I did. So I had my store going, Motherload. I'm traipsing down to Jamaica to buy weed and smuggle it out of there, right? So I did charter a plane. I hired Eddie, and then I had a boat, David and Jake the Snake. We couldn't bring it into Miami in the airplane, so we had to drop it somewhere.
So now with a plan, Patty went back to Jamaica, rented a car, and drove to the mountains.
And it was just me. And there were no guns and no violence involved in it, nobody trying to rip me off. And they took me in. They embraced me. And I stayed up there. One of the old men in Rastas, he was like a shaman in a way. He grabs my hand and he says, come with me, I wanted to show you something. So I'd follow this little trail all the way to the top of the mountain there. There's this like a cave, and there's these marijuana plants growing, and they had just white feathers all through it. And he said, we smoke, we're going to smoke. I said, okay, great. All of a sudden, I am hallucinating like you would not believe. I'm like thinking any minute now I can just reach up and pluck a star right out of the sky. Holy Toledo. I wants to take some of this back with me.
The next morning, Patty buys 900 pounds of this weed.
Matthew, you wouldn't have believed how strong this stuff was.
She travels to an abandoned airfield in the mountains, where she waits for her private plane to pick her up.
I'm out on the airstrip, and I'm kind of looking for him, and here comes a man with a cow, walking his cow down the runway, and I'm saying, you gotta get off, there's a plane landing. And about that time, I see something coming out of the brush, and it's a man in a uniform. He says, what are you doing here? And I said, oh, this friend of mine is going to land. He's got a little plane. He's going to take me up and show me the whole island. He looked at me and he said, I don't think so. I beg your pardon? Okay, you got me. What? And I had $400 or $500 left. So I said 200, and he said, I'll take it. I'll have my guys come up and protect you on the road. My Rasta's sitting in their cars are in the brush over here. They're loaded with the ganja. And we loaded the plane up. At this point, I'm still feeling fairly secure. The plane is good. And all of a sudden, the engine started spluttering and it went out. We're out of fuel in the starboard engine. We gotta go down now. And I mean, we dove, my ears just burst. Boom. And I'm looking down. When I saw the airstrip, I said, Eddie, there's an airstrip right down in this next island. Take a look to your right. And he saw it.
At this airfield, they find one employee working. He helps them refuel. But he starts to suspect they're up to something.
And we take some time down at the end of the runway. And then this guy all of a sudden jumps in his taxi and starts to get on the runway. And thank God Eddie had the engines going, man. He turned that plane around and boy, we flew right over him. Bye-bye.
That evening, Patty made it back to Miami safely. Her weed arrived by boat the next morning.
And that is basically the end of that story, except that, I had to sell it.
Patty didn't tell anyone about her trip. She kept it a secret. But news started to spread of a young woman who had a special kind of weed.
So there was 900 pounds that had come in.
And Patty sold it for below market value.
I never changed my price. I didn't go up.
Why did you sell it so low?
Why did I? Because then nobody gets busted. There's no greed involved. I think that's where everything goes wrong.
But the other dealers in Miami were wondering where all this new weed was coming from. That group included her boyfriend, John. He got suspicious and asked,
Patty, are you bringing weed in from Jamaica? I said, what? Are you nuts? What are you talking about? So he said, I'm just leaving. We're not gonna see each other anymore. I said, okay, I'm doing it. All right, you got it now. And he was like, what made you think you could do it? I said, well, if you dummies could do it, I knew darn good and well I could. That didn't set too well, but anyway.
Patty and John eventually married and decided to work together. But once John started operating the business on a bigger scale, one of their collaborators hired a pilot who turned out to be a DEA agent, and some of their partners ended up in jail.
Let's put it that way. When I started having my children, that was the end for me. That was it.
But before she dedicated herself to being a mom, her friend Mike was starting a music festival. It was called Woodstock. He asked her to provide some of that special weed from Jamaica. Patty delivered, and you can say the rest is history.
I don't know. I got the balls to do any of it, truthfully. I think back on it today and I thought, oh my God, how did you do that, Patty? What were you thinking? You weren't thinking, or you were? Well, anyway.